Yeah, that's how it felt. Like I'm asking Uncle Sam for permission to pee. Dudes and dudettes, what is up? It's Abby Jean, and I'm here with another trip report video, which I'm super stoked about. Obviously I've been gone for a bit, and I had to go home, or from my hometown, not home, my home is here, but I had to go to my hometown to take care of some life business stuff, and I also got to see my band, which I was super excited about because I'm working on some music projects. But today we're doing a trip report because the first thing I did when I got home was wanting to do this. So here I am. I did it over the weekend. I took 3 grams of very strong golden teacher psilocybin mushrooms, and I thought it was a good idea to go into Manhattan and take these shrooms. Before we get into the actual trip itself, I want to talk about this because this video is not meant to be a video of like how to do this, how to eat mushrooms in the city, because I honestly do not suggest, especially for people who are new to this, anybody take mushrooms and go into a city or any place that has a large amount of people in it. This video was sort of requested, I suppose, by a friend, and I had gotten some comments about tripping in New York City, do you ever go to the city? And my response to that is, I have many times in my life tripped in the middle of cities. Actually, I've done it kind of all over the world, in crazy places, in crazy situations, and that was when I was, younger and used to be more like, I was really psychonaut, thrill-seeking. How far can I take this? And at this point in my life, I want to help people get onto a safe train with psychedelics. You guys can live vicariously through my poor choices. Even if you are experienced, this can be a really frightening situation. You being around people in public can be really hard. You're going through a whole defragmentalization of matter and consciousness, and you can really go through a lot, and it's also can be a very private experience. Not everyone is capable of doing that out in public, and I'm barely capable of doing it. It was very made me very anxious in the beginning. So I also haven't done this in a while. So basically, all I'm saying is I do not suggest that you go do this. I did this so that I can take you on the ride, and I personally, selfishly, always wanted to trip in Central Park, so I decided I was gonna do it. I also want to say that it was way harder filming this video than it was my last video where I was in the park and I was also on a lower dose. So the last video was at 2 grams. The shrooms that I had this time, I tested a couple days before I decided to take the larger dose, and they were very strong. I took 0.5 and I was almost hitting the threshold, and it actually, affected my day. So I knew that if I took 3 grams of these, I was going to definitely end up in psychedelia. I had my trip sitter with me, and we brought, granola bars, apples, water, things so that I could make my way. My trip sitter was completely sober, and he also filmed for me half of the time. We ran into a few technical difficulties. We had a gimbal, and then one of our cameras ran out of storage, and then we had to go onto another camera. And the beginning, I couldn't hold it myself because I was really coming up, and I did still get footage. So we're basically gonna do this like a reaction video where I show you the footage and then I explain what's going on. So here we go. Before I do trips, any kind of trips, I like to sage my whole house, and that's what I'm doing here, obviously. I do a little prayer, and I try to ground myself because it's good to be in the right mindset before you go on this big kind of journey that you're about to embark on. So I started there, and then I ate my mushrooms. I'm in Jackson Heights, Queens, and we're on our way to Central Park.
Let's go.
So I'm just walking towards the train now, and it's interesting because it had only been around 15 minutes and I was already starting to feel the mushrooms. Like, I had to walk into a deli and get something, and already I was like totally seeing that person and pretty sure they could see me. So I knew that by the time I got on the train, I was definitely going to be coming up.
It's all a simple dream. I have only you.
It's interesting because even by this point, this was only like 5 minutes later, I'm on the train. You can tell I'm even getting a little nervous because there's people around me. I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. I'm starting to come up. I even got that sleepy feeling when, when you first start to come up, you can start to feel a little tired because it's like you're about to cross this threshold in your brain, but first you start to get a little sleepy. By the time we got off, I was definitely about to peak, so I knew it was coming on. I was right there, and I didn't even know how to get out of the subway. I had to ask my trip sitter, I'm like, which way am I going? And I was almost starting to have doubts about this experience. Like, I was even a little nervous. Yeah, I was just trying to get out of the subway and get some fresh air. At this point, I was feeling really overwhelmed, and I was just about, like I said, I was just about to start peaking. So I was trying to explain to my trip sitter what was happening, but it wasn't too successful. I was just rambling and didn't really want to be on film at that point.
Okay, I now have control over my... Okay, I have control over my camera now.
You can see I'm still struggling. I had just peaked on our walk to Central Park, and I was just, following my trip sitter, just knowing that I had somewhere to get to. And by the time we got there, I was like ready to take the camera, but clearly I was still having a little trouble.
I was saying I feel better because I'm here in Central Park, which is where I intended to be. And that the train was very overwhelming because I ate them before I got here versus coming here and then eating them, which maybe is a better idea. But also everything looks really beautiful, so I'm gonna either film that or go away. This looks really gorgeous to me. To this camera, it doesn't actually look as pretty.
So since I had just come up from that peak, now I broke through the threshold and I was starting to see how you're able to look at everything like a microscope. I could see every little grain of wood. I could see every pattern on those leaves. So at the time it looked really amazing. Yeah, I had it through the camera and I'm like, it looks way cooler in real life.
It almost doesn't even look real.
It looks fake in real life, or it looks fake on the camera?
It looks fake in real life.
But it looks real on the camera?
Yeah. My makeup looks like a lion.
Clearly I was very infatuated with the camera. Okay, so after that we got into the park and I ended up in a section where there's a zoo. And there's this sort of carousel clock that I've never actually seen gone off while I've been in the park. So it hit and I could hear these bells, and the bells were very out of tune. So the feeling was very eerie, and immediately I wanted to film, so I was trying to grab my camera from my trip sitter and I'm like, I need the camera, this is so interesting. And then this weird glitch happened, which I thought was it was trippy on its own.
Okay, me filming is not a good idea.
Basically, there's these really loud bells. They were out of tune. And it's interesting because the sound was starting to resonate through me. So if you are on a pretty good amount of shrooms, sometimes feelings can start to feel like they're flowing right through you. So the vibration of the sound was just so overwhelming, and it was eerie, but it was also very beautiful. So I was infatuated with it and wanted to film it. Also, this is kind of a carousel. There's a clock and then there's a carousel and it has these little animals on it, which I thought was very funny.
It's not soft, but it's quiet.
Okay, you can imagine what that's like when you're on mushrooms. That's happening. Okay. I was getting mad Brazil vibes when I went in this bathroom, and what I mean by that is like...
Quickly. So after the carousel, I ended up going into a bathroom because I had to pee really bad. And this is me explaining my experience about that.
We're living in a really interesting time right now because we're living in a pandemic and we're still trying to make the 21st century work for us. Like, it's just strange. I don't know, like there's a person in the bathroom now that you have to like address. It's like, in my mind, I'm just like, okay, the point of this person's job is to make sure there aren't too many people in the bathroom so that I can be in the bathroom. But also the fact that I have to address this kind of angry sort of person, like just to use the restroom, seems overbearing. And it's a government-owned like bathroom, so it just felt very Brazil. Like there's too many people on top of each other already. Like control. Like I'm asking Uncle Sam for permission to pee.
Also, to clarify, when I say it felt very Brazil, I'm referring to this Terry Gilliam film that was made in the 80s. You should check it out if you haven't seen it already. It's a very good movie, but it's very, it's actually pretty relatable to life as we know it right now, but it's an exaggeration of kind of the hyper control that we have in society. And I think just having the heightened sense while I was on shrooms, I just felt so vulnerable, and it was very strange to have to, obviously this is for safety precautions, we're still in a pandemic, but it was still very strange because I was so vulnerable to have to actually almost ask permission to use a public restroom. I thought that was very interesting.
I felt like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where it's like just the vibe of the bathroom, and the mirrors aren't real mirrors, they're like that like what do you call it even that? It's just like aluminum siding. So I was kind of having this experience of just like, God, everything feels like so controlling and I'm so vulnerable because I'm here on mushrooms. And then when I came out and I was washing my hands and I saw myself, I was like, oh, actually everything's great. Like the light and me and everything's fine.
A lot of people like to say that you shouldn't look at yourself in the mirror when you're tripping. I find the exact opposite. When I look at myself through a mirror when I'm tripping, I usually see my soul like very intensely, and it's something that I've learned to love. And maybe, I'm not sure, what do you guys think about it? Like, when I have like really heavy trips and I look in the mirror, it's actually a really profound, beautiful experience. I've never seen it negatively, and I have actually hallucinated one time, like getting older and aging, but I actually thought it was really beautiful. I didn't find it scary, but this is like the constant debate. Do you look in the mirror or do you not? What do you guys think?
And what are you seeing?
Well, I was saying like seeing the lighting on everything is just gorgeous. These buildings behind you, just the way it looks, the blue is so perfectly blue, and the tree, like everything just stands out so much more. Even I can see on that video now, I just looked at the video, it does not look like what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is perfection. Like literal perfection. Everything is perfect. All right, I'm handholding it because we're moving handheld because the other thing broke or something. Oh, my phone ran out of space. That's what happened.
Talk about it.
I was saying I feel extremely alive, and I feel like an animal that's just like ready to...
Still wasn't able to finish my sentence, but I know exactly what I was saying, which is at that time I was feeling so alive, so invigorated. I felt so full of energy, but I was also processing tons of information. We were in the park, there was people throwing balls, there was people playing music, there was people playing games, there was people, you know, singing somewhere with their guitar, someone was filming a video, and I was processing all of that while also feeling so alive. And I really did feel kind of like a wild animal, like if I was like a dog or something, and I was just so alive and you know, kind of running around, and yet everything's going on at once. So I'm also like overstimulated but excited, very wild and primitive feeling.
So I'm in Central Park. Obviously, this is my whole day, but right now, like I'm comfortable enough to obviously be having this conversation, but I can talk. But it's interesting because when I stop, it's like I'm hearing 20 conversations at once. I can hear the people over there, I can hear the people over there, I can hear the people behind me, I can hear the music over there. It's like literally you're in tune with like not everything that's going on, but a lot of what's going on.
So what was happening to me in this moment was I almost felt invisible. And what I mean by that is I knew that I had a physical body, but you become so heightened that it almost felt like, it didn't almost feel like, it did. I could feel all of the molecules in movement around me. So thing is like we're made out of matter, and there's also atoms and things in the air in which we're touching. Everything is a molecule, everything. So my molecule with like my hand is actually touching the molecule of the air, which is actually touching the molecule of another person, because it's actually all energy that we live in. So it's this constant movement. So I felt like I could feel all of those things just flow right through my body and my existence and my mind. I was one with the people in the park. It was pretty amazing.
So the overstimulation is just your brain is like decompartmentalizing everyone's conversations, and some guy's making a video over there and somebody's playing basketball and somebody, like, it's crazy. It's like, yeah, it's amazing. Talking is hard because I'm also processing all of that information. But, you know, we probably do that every day anyway. It's like you think that you're isolated in your mind, but you're really not. Like every day when you walk around, like the outside noise, like the cars, everything, like it's all a part of you. So everyone's like constantly moving around one another, doing things. It's crazy. Like planet Earth is this huge like motion of an organism. I like it here. It doesn't feel like the subway where like it felt really sad because everyone was like had their was masked up and had their phones, but now it's like there's still a lot of life. Like there's some kid on some like 9-year-old kid on his skateboard, and there's just like people everywhere, and it's really nice to see. Okay, I was just saying the reason I'm filming this is so that people can see what this is like. Obviously, this is not the most responsible thing to do because I am out in public. There's people everywhere. There's stimulation everywhere. And it's very hard to have an internal experience because there's so much stimuli like going on in other people. So it's very external. So it almost lends more towards your ego versus away from it, which I feel like it would be more of an anti-ego experience like if I wasn't around a million people. But I feel like the defense mechanism of like the human form is to like boost the ego even more so that you can get through whatever it is you're getting through.
Like what I mean by that is I was aware that we were all one, and I was one with everything because I was actually having that breakdown of an experience. But when I was walking through crowds, or when I was even just people were close to me, or even when I was filming, I really had to listen to my ego because I had to remember that I was still a person, like within the structure of like society. So that's, you know, it's a really uncomfortable experience, especially when you do. I tend to want to go inward and I want to lose my ego. So the good news is I did have, like, it was so strong that at points like I just couldn't even do that anymore. Like it started with a defense, and then later on it was just looking people in the eye and telling them how beautiful they were, kind of thing. Because there's just a point where there's no use anymore when you're already experiencing it. After that, we made our way to a place in the park called Strawberry Fields, which is a dedication to John Lennon. And right outside of Strawberry Fields is actually the apartment that he lived in and where he got killed.
Okay, I'm here in Central Park, but I'm at this big mosaic, and it says Imagine, which is for John Lennon. And I just find it really interesting because as a musician, and also John Lennon, who impacted my life greatly, like, people love to come here and take photos, obviously. But it's just interesting because I personally just keep seeing people, you know, trying to find their cutest photo by the Imagine thing. But I don't think about a photo, I think about all the memories that I had in my own psyche, like, connected to this person's music. And like, if I were to ever become a musician that big, like, I would want that to be the memory that's in the minds of everyone. Like, not a picture of a place representing my death, but what I meant to those people in their hearts and in their minds. That's all.
So I personally believe in this connection of the psyche, and I believe that art is one way to get into that connection, or plug in, or tune in, whatever you want to call it. And so I'm really just witnessing the psychic world, or the, you know, human consciousness together, which the music flows through and affects me and my memories, versus the material world, which is, you know, people, it doesn't have as much sentiment and doesn't have as much meaning. When you go and you just see everybody one by one, okay, sit down, okay, get your picture, okay, put it on Instagram, I did it. A friend of mine said it's like rock and roll bingo, like, let's go to all the places all the famous rock and rollers died. It's like, you know, meanwhile, here I am eating magic mushrooms in Central Park, thinking about all of the beautiful sentimental moments that I had with John Lennon and his music in my mind. And, you know, that is the meaning to me, is the memory that I have of a child, which actually helped form who I am today. And that music influenced me greatly. And I would hope that people see my music the same way versus, oh, I just want to take a photo. I also kind of associate with the spirit and the soul of music.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's been a few hours, and there was a point where I thought I was totally coming down, but then we started walking more towards the park, and we started walking towards the protest, what I could hear, and I literally just had, like, all of the pain that was being talked about, like, with Black people in America, like went through my entire body, I think. And then I saw a woman who was Black but looked like me, like she had red hair and cool glasses, and I was like, oh my god, I love you. And she was like, I love you too. And then she was like, be safe. And I was like, you too. Like, the pain is so real, and it needs to be addressed in humanity because it's actually happening. Like, it's not people just making shit up. Like, these people have been going through this shit in this country for a long time, and it's real and legitimate. We need to fucking listen. That's all.
Once we left Strawberry Fields, I ended up walking through another direction of the park, and there was actually a protest happening, and I could hear somebody giving a speech on this megaphone, and I was in the park, but to my right was Trump Tower, so there was, you know, hundreds of people surrounding, and there was this protest. And I actually thought I was coming down at this point, but then I was suddenly hit with a wave of feeling and emotion, and it was like this wave that's sitting in the bottom, or like lingering somewhere in the shadow world of human consciousness, is this pain. And it's the pain of people of color in America and the things that they've had to endure. And it really hit me very, very hard, and I started crying, and it was like, it wasn't even my thought, it was the thought of the unconscious. I don't know what it's like to be a person of color in America, but I did get to, luckily, grow up in a diverse place where I have people around me my whole life who have been dealing with it. Unlike some people, or some, you know, who don't grow up around a lot of diversity, or they just grow up around all white people and they don't actually see what's really going on. This is like a human rights, civil rights issue, and there is a group of people within our collective of humanity and within our collective of life who are trying to tell us that they are in pain and we need to listen, because if you were in pain and you were telling someone and they didn't listen, or they thought you were trying to get something other than, you know, justice in this case and love, if you were in the position of being oppressed because of something like white supremacy in our country, or being suppressed for anything that mattered, you also wouldn't be happy and you would want people to listen to you. And I think at this point in time where we are right now, it's very important to actually listen to people. Everybody. It's important to listen to everybody, and it's important to have empathy, because we're all human beings trying to figure this life out. And it's true that life is not fair, and it's really easier to just choose compassion and empathy from my experience. It also feels better, and it also tends to make things work better. Really, I felt like I tapped into that part of life, and for anyone who's confused, it's very important to reflect on these situations and to not get lost in, you know, all the drama, but to literally think about people and how they're actually feeling in every circumstance, because that is where the truth lies. Anyway, I think we should do better, and we should listen to each other.
We just get a smoothie. It's been hours in the city. Still going pretty hard. It's interesting because you're around people, but you're learning lessons like about humanity and spirituality and yourself, and life is a network. And I don't know, it's really amazing and beautiful, but it's lasting a long time. I'm impressed at how strong these shrooms are, basically.
Can it really be as real as it seems? Stop and listen.
So basically, after this last little bit, we pretty much gave up on filming, but I did have another few hours in the city that I had a really great time. And I also ran into some other really mystical things. All in all, I had a really amazing experience. It was actually really good for me, because I also got to connect with more people that I didn't really talk about. I met a couple people like on my journey, which was really amazing. And you know, it's a really good feeling when you see people and they see you, and you just, it really restores your hope in humanity, because not everyone is totally shut off and not everybody is totally depressed, even in such strange times that we're in. So I came up with some really great things that I learned about myself personally, and some really nice reminders while we're living in this crazy time. And that's it. It was a great time, and I was very thankful for my trip sitter because he got me home safely, and I spent the night feeling very happy and grateful for these experiences. But again, I do not suggest that you do this. I do not suggest. This is not a harm reduction video. This is, again, me just taking you along on my crazy journey that I decided to go on. Yeah, and that's it. I will do another trip report video. I'm gonna continuously up dosage. So, like I said, this trip, I took 3 grams of very strong golden teacher mushrooms. The last trip I did, trip report, was a microdosing trip report, and the next trip report I will do will be on a full dose, an 1/8 of magic mushrooms, somewhere safe, where we can kind of go over the protocols of set and setting and many other things involved. I hope you guys enjoyed this and had a fun ride with me, and I will see you next time. Stay trippy, everybody.
I love sentiment. I am a sentimentalist. The dream of magic is in reality, but also lives in my mind. Like I said, the art is the reflection of the dream in my mind, and the sentiment is still in my mind. Like when I went to see John Lennon with regard to the pictures, again, that's the material world. But the substance is in your mind. The substance is when I was 13, having conversations with John Lennon. That's the sentiment, and that's the meaning. So sentiment gives life meaning, love, and memories.
and you want to give people meaning in their lives.
Yes, definitely. More sentiment. I love it. You know, if we're living in dark times, we need a little bit of sentiment. It's escapism, but it's escapism in its truest form because you're creating a reality together of love. Does that make sense? Versus like creating a reality of all these other weird things, war games and whatever else it is. I would rather be in sentiment than shitty reality, you know? A dark place where everyone's on their phone and the world's on fire.